think it's important that our council highlights the great work that we have done in such short time to improve our environment and become environmental stewards, great environmental stewards of our community. Earth Day was founded on April 22nd, 1970. So this year will mark the 50th anniversary of the day. It's a holiday that's celebrated by billions of individuals across the world. And, I just would especially like to note that, several businesses here in Groton have pledged to make measurable positive changes towards becoming more sustainable this year by directly implementing the plastics reduction ordinance. And those businesses, and individuals right now would have typically have engaged in service projects in town, during this month, and so in support of Earth Day, so that we can become a more sustainable environment. But that's obviously been put to a halt because of social distancing and in the stay-at-home orders. So very much look forward to participating in those events once those orders are lifted. And obviously, it's quite important that moving forward, the town supports policies that enhance our environment and so we can sustain our very unique and valuable environmental resources we have in town. So with that, I yield the floor and hope everyone's doing well.
Thank you. Councilor Parker?
Good evening, everyone. As Town Manager Burt has spoken about sending out our condolences. Thank you, Mr. Manager. Earth Day is correct, as Councilor Baumgartner talked about, is tomorrow. And I was reviewing the history of it and looking at Thomas Migley and Claire Patterson, who discovered about the lead. So having regulations and clear regulations and change is very important. And I hope to convey that clearly. And even though I'm hesitant on some things, it's because I want things to be done clearly, correctly, and accurate. So we don't have to come back and revisit stuff and make changes over again. Again, my condolences to the family who have lost their loved one, and pray for those who are currently sick. And thank you to all who are working during this time period, from essential workers on to everyone that's involved. It takes a toll on a person, and please know that I'm very thankful for you guys to be putting yourselves out there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Parker. Councilor Franco?
Hi, thank you. I would like to send my deepest condolences to our resident who had lost their life to COVID during this tragic time. I'd also like to switch gears and talk about Earth Day and encourage our residents in our community to go out and maybe pick up some litter in our town and do a little something for our community to make it a better place for all of us. And I hope you are all staying healthy and wearing your masks and trying to stay out of the public places to protect yourselves until we get past this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Heat?
Conrad?
Unmute. Thank you. I'd also like to express my condolences as well to the family of the woman who passed away. And, as others have mentioned, remind everyone to please wear your masks when you're in public and wash your hands. It's very important. And of course, there's a lot of need in the community. It's likely to grow. Just want to remind people that you can make donations to the Groton Human Services or other local charities. If you're able, please do. And finally, I'd like to echo the previous statements on Earth Day and also cite a recent article in Foreign Affairs. The COVID-19, I'm just going to summarize it real quick for you. The COVID-19 pandemic is only the latest in a series of unnecessary catastrophes. Professionals warn and plan, and amateurs scoff and ignore them. And by the time a crisis arrives, it's too late to do more than react and suffer. Climate change is going to be a crisis, and it's unfolding more slowly than this current pandemic, but it could have vaster consequences. And I feel like the world could tackle it a little earlier, but we've blown through a few decades of denial, and some of the damage is already baked in. Yet wise public policy can still limit the scale of the eventual disaster. So the crucial role of local and community leadership in fostering simple behavioral changes with powerful collective effects, the equivalent of the environmental equivalent of hand washing. These are the basis for our recently passed plastics reduction ordinance. And we can do more. We should see climate change not only as an environmental risk, but also a strategic opportunity. One of the most effective ways to sequester carbon is to capture it in the soil. Soil can hold up to 3 times more carbon than the atmosphere, and protecting or enhancing open space could help. And as a result, this council has encouraged the staff to identify opportunities to improve our protected open space. Wetlands, in addition, hold another 20 to 30% of the world's carbon, but only take up 5% of the land mass. And they serve a double measures defensive measure for storm surges during hurricanes. Now, we recently launched the Resiliency Task Force to assist in this effort, as well as the Conservation Commission is working on similar projects. One of the opportunities we have is we can link these properties together with trails and recreational opportunities. So it isn't just about fighting carbon in the atmosphere. It's also about how to make it a better town to live in. So regular people can do their part. They can plant a tree. They can organize or participate in a trash cleanup, and you can also produce less waste. So anyways, that's about it. There's an Earth Day challenge on earthday.org, and there are several podcasts on the internet that you can listen to and learn more. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Aubrey?
Well, my condolences and my prayers truly go to the family that have experienced this loss. I think what we can do is keep a list of the different things we're not able to do right now. And when things change, we'll get back and we'll celebrate them on a different day, or we'll celebrate them much greater in the year to come. And talking to a lot of people, many families have told me that they've become much closer being home and finding ways to be together and enjoy each other. And so I think some real good may come out of this. I think we might all become more closer and appreciate what we do have and some of the simple things in life. So I just ask you all to be strong, keep those masks on, and we'll keep on moving. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Bordelon?
Thank you. I'll just basically say, I just send comfort and strength to the family that currently experienced the loss, and comfort and strength to all that are dealing with this directly or indirectly in the town or community. It's a tough time to be away from loved ones, and as people are becoming sick, it's hard to not be with your loved ones. So comfort and strength are my words, and I send that out to everyone and wish everyone the best. As far as Earth Day, I think COVID-19 has opened our eyes up to how we can be more aware of our surroundings and not only just spend time with family, but also the environmental aspects that have been decreased by the distancing and lack of people traveling daily. I know in my own area, I can tell a difference. There's not as much traffic, and there's some articles out there noting that in the urban cities that with the decrease in distancing, increase in distancing, that the ozone and certain areas, the air in those areas seem to be reduced, the impact on the climate. So, but once again, thinking of everybody, wishing everyone the best.
Thank you. Councilor Melendez?
Yes, thank you. I would like to echo the sentiments of the other counselors. I'm sorry for the loss. Sorry for hearing that. The Personnel and Appointments Committee met right before, and we recommended the nomination of Matthew Schulman to the Library Board and Elizabeth Hogan to Parks and Rec Commission.
Thank you. Councilor Perry.
Comments and stop the jabber. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Perry. So again, I express sympathy to the families of the latest victim of the pandemic. I just want to remind everybody that we are all members of the community and we have a responsibility along with rights. And part of that responsibility is to act in a manner that does not endanger and jeopardize other people. That includes social distancing and wearing face coverings. It doesn't have to be a mask. If the masks are not available, it can be a scarf. It can be something simple and homemade. But it is our job and our responsibility as members of the community to take these measures so that we can minimize the loss of life. Moving on, the census, the Lieutenant Governor is pleased with where we are at this point. We're at 51.2% response on the paper census forms. She is going to be conducting another outreach at some point this week to encourage people. I'm sorry, I said that incorrectly. We're at 51.2% on the online returns of the census. The paper forms are going to be going out. So she's going to be doing outreach to try to encourage the people in Groton to complete those paper forms. And she is working with some of the people that are online with us tonight in our subdivisions. So we need you to complete the census. It makes a difference in representation and cash for the people of Groton. And I just very briefly, I see Councilor Perry, very briefly about Earth Day. We have a proud legacy in our town of caring for open space, plant and animal life, our fisheries and our marine life. We have to credit the legacy of the people that came before us, our conservation allies that gave us the Wright property, the Merritt property. There's so many, BB, Haley property. And we honor their legacy by carrying on this tradition, carrying on the tradition of caring for this earth that we have temporarily. We don't own this earth. Hopefully we leave it in better condition for the generations to come. All right, I'm done pontificating, Councilor Perry. We're good. Onward and upward. Approval of minutes. We have 3 sets of minutes. So we are to Councilor Baumgartner. If you could move the approval of the minutes, please.
You're muted.
I'm sorry. I'll make a motion to approve the March 24, 2020 meeting minutes, the March 28, 2020 special meeting minutes, and the March 31st, 2020 special meeting minutes. So moved.
Second.
Is that Aubrey?
Yep.
Moved by Baumgartner and seconded by Aubrey. Any corrections to the minutes?
Yes.
Councilor Baumgartner.
Yes, 3 corrections. Number 1, on page, I'm sorry, it looks like page 1 of,
Which date, please?
I'm sorry, this is I was getting there, the Saturday, March 28th meeting minutes. On the budget sheet for the first budget sheet, it has me arriving at 8:06 a.m. I had arrived at 8 o'clock. The issue was I wasn't signed in as a participant. I was an attendee, and so I'd like the minutes reflecting that.
Okay, let me restate that just so we're clear, because they're going to have to go back in. So that was the March 28th special meeting minutes, and you'd like the time of the arrival adjusted.
Yes, I actually don't think it's necessary at all because it only says Councilor Baumgartner arrived at 8:06.
Okay, go ahead. And then next.
Yep, and then the the second page of those meeting minutes for that that budget spreadsheet.
Right.
My name is spelled incorrectly on where it says add funding for ARC and UCFS and remove symphony funding. It should be Bumgardner with an N between the D and the E. And then thirdly, on page, on page,
Are we still on the 28th or are we on to a different date?
we are now on the 24th meeting minutes.
Okay.
It says Councilor Bumgarner informed the council that a bill was discussed at the state capitol. So there should be an ED following the discuss, and then state capitol should be capital with a O instead of an A. And that is all.
Okay. Any other corrections to the minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor of approval of the minutes of March 24th, 28th, and 31st, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Aye. Franco.
Franco abstained. 8 in favor, 0 opposed, 1 abstention. Franco. Thank you. So we are on to item 5, which is new business. And the first item is 5A 2020-248, Governor's Executive Order 7S. Okay. This is dealing, excuse me?
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
That's okay. We are going to hold off on making a resolution because we don't, let me see. Yeah, we don't have a resolution yet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce several people that are with us this evening to help us get through this. And we have with us Attorney Cody from the Town Attorney's Office. We have several chiefs from the various fire districts, Deputy Chief Driscoll, Chief Fauntleroy, Chief Still, Becky Wilson. We have City of Groton, Mayor Hedrick, Ron Uhas, Groton Utilities, Ron Gaudet, Tina Daniels, Groton Long Point, Andrea Frickman, and David McBride. And then we have, I believe, OPD, Planning and Development Services staff with us, as well as the Finance Director. So I'm going to stop talking and throw this over to the manager and Mr. Cody to give us some background information, please.
Sure. Rich, I'll just give a little bit of background first before you talk about the options with the resolutions. Is that okay?
That's fine, John.
Okay. Executive Order 7S6, suspension and modification of tax deadlines and collection efforts. That was approved on, I think it was April 25th. Is that what is it? Anyways, it established 2 programs, the deferment program and the low interest rate program, to offer to support eligible taxpayers, businesses, nonprofits, and residents who have been economically affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. By this Saturday, before the 25th, each town has to tell the state which of these options, deferment or low interest or a combination of both, that they want to pursue, but you do have to pick at least one to let the state know before Saturday. The deferment program offers a 90-day deferment of the due date of any taxes due or water, sewer, or electric charges for those deemed eligible. It is the due date that's deferred, not the tax that's deferred. Important to point that out. So bills due between April 1st and July 1st. The deadline to pay without incurring interest would be October 1st, 2020. If bills are not paid by October 2nd, 2020, interest at 18% will be due and will revert back to July 1st, 2020. The low interest rate program lowers the interest rate from 18% to 3% for a period of 90 days from the due date. Taxes, water, sewer, or electric bills are still due and payable, but the interest rate charged on delinquent amounts will be based on a reduced rate of 0.25% per month or portion thereof instead of the current 1.5% per month. Let's see, for taxes due 7/1/20, the interest rate reduction will end on October 2nd, 2020. For any bills due on or after July 2nd, the interest reverts. And then eligibility for deferment program residents, the household must attest to or document it has suffered a reduction in income of at least 20% due to COVID-19 and provide proof of residency. The reduction in household income can be due to furloughed without pay, hours significantly reduced, unemployment. For businesses, nonprofits, revenue is expected to decrease at least 30% in the March to June 2020 period versus the March to June 2019 period, and provide proof of ownership. And then there's also some language concerning landlords. Rich, if you want to go over you've prepared 6 resolutions, I believe, for options.
Yeah, thanks, John. That's a fair summary. The landlord, the orders carve out from all of the programs landlord eligibility. Landlord's eligible only if he or she passes along a similar forbearance or interest rate reduction on the to the tenants, and that would have to be demonstrated by a certification form. So in all of the resolutions I've prepared, you'll find a paragraph that lays out that landlords have to still become eligible through a certification process. So I was asked to put together 6 different possible resolutions, which consist of in some parts just outright acceptance of one of the programs, and then others are a combination. So one, it adopts the interest rate program, and John, you covered that. It addresses lowering the interest rate for payments from April 1 to July 1, and then what's the due date up to October 1st, lowering the per annum interest rate to 3%. It does not defer payment, it just lowers the interest rate. And so if somebody pays within those periods of time, they're relieved from paying the 18% interest, which some people consider to be punitive. Then we have a program where the resolution would establish the eligibility for everybody without having to demonstrate any hardship from the COVID. In other words, everybody's just simply eligible for the deferment for the 90 days until October 2nd. I have one that simply adopts the deferment plan and requires a showing of a hardship from COVID. Then we get into some more complicated ones. We're going to see adjustments. There's one that I prepared that that everybody has to demonstrate a hardship from COVID, except for homeowners. Homeowners are automatically eligible. So we're distinguishing between classes of taxpayers in this one, between homeowners and commercial and businesses. Let's see, another one I was just asked to put together today is a combination of the low interest rate program with the deferment program. This one would make homeowners automatically eligible. It would require a hardship to be shown by other taxpayers, but in the event those other taxpayers do not qualify, they're automatically jumped into the loan program. And then the last one is where it's an adoption of the deferment program where all the taxpayers are eligible are eligible only if they show a hardship, and if they can't show a hardship, then they land in the low interest rate program. So those are the 6 I was asked to put together. Happy to take some questions if you want some details.
Thank you, Mr. Cody. What I would want it to do next was to check in with our attendees from the fire districts and our subdivisions to see if any of them, having listened to your presentation, if any of them wanted to speak to any of the particular options. Mayor Hedrick, would you like to address any of the options presented? Are there any that would present particular difficulties for your subdivision?
Well, the one that is thank you, Mayor Granatowski. the one that is probably the best would be allowing the residents defer, and then the businesses and industry would have to submit documentation to show proof. That would be the best. And because part of the issue is that if you look at our number one and number two taxpayers, which are Pfizer and Electric Boat, they're continuing to work. So they were not, it does not appear at first glance that they were harmed by the virus because they still are doing the work. So, and they are our largest taxpayers, because the thing that we have to remember is we still have bills to pay. And the deferment, you know, if we defer the receipt of money, meaning the revenue side, you still have the expenses, and that's still got to be managed. And so I guess that's it in a nutshell.
So, okay. So very briefly then again, you are in favor of which options?
I think it's the first one I think was the one where the residents were automatic in it, and then the businesses and the industry had to apply. Is that correct?
Okay, it's in a couple, because we had one, a counselor asked for another one late this afternoon, and it was put together. So I believe that's actually in two of them. But okay, so we understand where you are with that and the reasons for that. Mr. McBride or Ms. Frickman, did you wish to address any of these? Let's see.
Hi, this is David McBride. Am I on? I'm not sure.
Yep, you are. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I would agree with the mayor of the city of Groton. I think what's important is for the residents to be allowed the tax deferment. I mean, I think most importantly, it's up to Mr. Burt to make sure the cash flows are sufficient, you know, in terms of allowing that 90-day extension. But first and foremost would be the residential component, and then secondly would be, as the mayor of the town, the city of Groton, to allow for the explanation of why the COVID-19 affected them, and if that was the case, then it would be decided by those that review that information. So I would agree with those comments.
Thank you, Mr. McBride. We have several representatives from the various fire districts in town. I'm not sure if any of you would like to speak. Deputy Chief Driscoll, did you want to speak from Pequannock Bridge, or are you in concurrence with what the mayor and Mr. McBride have said?
Want to punish or hurt anyone that's already suffering a huge deficit right now. I just, for clarification purposes, I just want to make sure from what I have read, people that are paying escrow with their mortgages, that money or those monies will still be paid out immediately, correct? Into the tax base?
Yes, that's right. The order specifically says that the mortgagees have to continue to pay as long as the mortgagor, the owner of the property, is paying the mortgage. But they should have that collected by now, so they should be making the payments come July 1.
So looking at some of the other towns, the city of New London mayor said 40% of their income is actually from escrow, mortgage escrows. So I'm assuming that there would be, you know, a substantial amount of money that actually does come in. It's not like we're talking no one will be paying taxes or no money will be coming in.
Mr. Burt or Director Landry, did you want to address that at all?
One moment, please.
Certainly. I know they ran some calculations as to what the impact would be to the town, given various scenarios. So they have considered these issues.
So I guess the biggest thing is, like I said, we definitely have the ability to go on. So really, whatever the town council decides, again, you know, we're just more concerned about how we can help out the citizens that are financially affected as well.
Thank you very much. We appreciate that.
This is John again. For the town-wide, the escrow accounts for about 40% of our taxes collected.
Thank you, Mr. Burt. Okay, are there any other members of the fire districts or Groton Utilities? I'm sorry, did any of you wish to speak or express your concerns if you have any? Mr. Gaudet.
Yes, I'd just like to explain what Groton Utilities is doing and why. We're actually, and I'll have Tina explain exactly how we're dealing with our customers on a day-to-day basis in half a second. But when the state of emergency arose, the utility decided to defer all interest charges on late payments and put them on hold for two reasons. One, it's the best thing to do for the ratepayers. And the second reason is our systems would have a hard time dealing with the 3% interest rate. So we don't have to invest in the money, which could be as much as $10,000 to make that modification on the interest rate that we would charge. So we'd like to keep the deferment simple, and that's the way we're dealing with it. And Tina, do you want to say what we're doing with people were they to enter late payment status?
Sure. Actually, we stopped doing late payments as of March 20th. We do still send a reminder notice to the customers that haven't paid their bills. And actually, it's a reminder that basically states that we completely understand that with the COVID-19, what it has done to certain households and our bill payers. And then also we've added multiple agencies that can assist customers, and not just with their utility bills, but food pantries or whatever may be needed. And anybody who calls in for a payment arrangement, we're doing whatever we can do with the customer and commercial accounts. We seem to be getting more commercial customers looking for assistance than actual residential customers, because they're the ones that are they had to shut their doors. So they're the ones that are probably getting hit a little bit more than the residential customers in the Groton Utilities area. So we are actually working very closely with the hotels and everybody, trying to help them to defer their payments longer out, and doing budget, helping them with budget payments or whatever needs to be done so that they can continue to keep their doors open and, until everything kind of comes back around.
Thank you very much. Okay, Mr. Burt or Mr. Cody, did you want to add anything else? If not, I'm going to open the floor for discussion to the council.
Do you want to hear from Cindy?
Yes, that would be wonderful.
Okay. I'm going to get out of her way so she can be at the computer. Give me a second.
Thank you. Finance Director Landry, thank you for joining us, and thank you for all your work in preparing the documents for us so we can make a good decision tonight.
You're welcome.
Sure.
Okay. I thought I had put together that table. We had to make an awful lot of assumptions in trying to come up with these numbers, and I just tried to put those tables together so that you could see the rationale behind what we were looking at for tax collections only. And so we used that 3-year average of July, August, and September. And we also looked at what both EB and Pfizer had paid in that period and what the bank escrows. And we used that to create the two tables. One, if they all paid, and then table 2, it says, well, what if the deferment were given to EB and Pfizer and they did not pay? So that's how I came up with those numbers to say we could be anywhere from 21 million to 29 million of a tax deficit on October 1st. So using those 3-year averages, I tried to project it forward, looking at what we might possibly be billing in July. And using that same analysis, I came up with the 3 tables. 1, that we do collect from Pfizer, EB, and the banks, and number 2, that we don't. So we could be looking at a reduction of anywhere from about 19 million to 26 million reduction in taxes. And once I put that together, I thought, well, I'm only talking about the tax revenue. So I needed to kind of push that forward and look at the general fund cash, because that's our main bank account, and that's where all the revenues and expenditures flow through. So I looked at what I came up with an estimate. And again, you know, I had to use a lot of assumptions here, looking at past data, and came up with what I expected a cash balance to be at the end of June. And then looked at what we would have to pay for July, August, September, and October, because if the taxes are not paid in October, technically we wouldn't have that money in our bank account until the 1st of November. And what would be the bare minimum that we would pay if we were to put the deferment in and expected to have a significant reduction in taxes. So when I put that all together, and my decision was we have to pay the people, we have to pay the Board of Ed, we would have to continue to pay our utilities, our software and maintenance contracts, we would have to pay our equipment, we have repair and maintenance contracts because we couldn't afford of any of our equipment to go down. So, but that would be excluding any money that leaves the town, anything paid to the subdivisions, the outside agencies, anything that absolutely did not have to be paid would be deferred to November. And using that kind of analysis, I came up and said, okay, what would we be looking at from a cash balance at the end of October? And I did look at what the revenue that would come in July and October, because we do get some state revenue. We get a part of the ECS money, we get some pilot money between July and October. So I added that back in, but it would be a significant reduction in cash. This time at the end of October last year, we had about $50 million in general fund cash. And using all of my estimates this year, I would think if we had the deferment, we would be looking at about 15 million. And I know that sounds like a lot of money, but compared to 50 million, it's a significant reduction in cash. And as long as we don't have a Storm Sandy and we don't have anything extraordinary that would happen, we would probably be able to squeak by. But we would have to watch our expenses very close. Anything that we paid would have to be absolutely essential between the first quarter of the year. So that's kind of how I got to where I was. I don't know if it's clear. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to try to answer what I based my analysis on.
Thank you. Mr. Burt, did you want to add anything? If not, I'm going to open it up to counselors.
No, nothing to add other than the only option I would be fearful of is opening up it to everybody without, you know, across the board, without any documentation for anybody.
Oh, can I add one other thing?
Yes.
One other consideration I wanted to put, and I believe I did include it in my referral, is while we get our taxes twice a year, for the subdivision, the fire district, all of their taxes are collected in July. So I did want to mention that as far as the subdivisions and the other fire districts, as long as they have the cash reserves to take them through 3 or 4 months of having no taxes, that is a concern also.
Okay, thank you. I see Councilor Baumgartner and Zepari have their hands up. Councilor Baumgartner.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. First and foremost, I'd like to thank our incredible Finance Director, Cindy Landry, for putting together these documents, as well as our Town Attorney, Rich Cody, for this matter, as well as our Town Manager and the several chiefs and Mayor Hedrick for calling in and providing input for something that is, in my eye, going to be provide tremendous relief to town taxpayers. Was actually the counselor that requested the option where a homeowner would be able to, town would defer taxes for all homeowners. However, businesses would have to demonstrate hardship directly to the town in order to receive that tax deferment. And if they do not qualify, then they would automatically be into the reduced interest rate program. So I think that would be the best option. It would be in my eye, in terms of staff oversight, there would require a reduced burden on town staff to actually have oversight over the program. Given that staff resources are limited, and so all homeowners would automatically be granted that exemption. So that was less work for town staff and provide blanket relief for all taxpayers. I'm sorry, homeowners that would qualify. So with that, I will yield the floor.
Councilor Perry.
We're talking about a deficit of between 19 million and 26 million dollars in October. Is that correct?
Yes.
Potential.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And if we have that much of a deficit, say if we have we'll start with a 26 million. If we have a $26 million deficit, are we going to be able to meet our obligations to the Board of Education and to all of our employees?
Yes, when I did my analysis for the cash, I had factored in the payroll for both the town and the Board of Ed. I looked at our personal services and I looked at our operating expenses to make sure that I took what I expected our ending cash to be in as of June 30th of this year, and deducted all of what I thought the bare minimum payments would be through July through October. And that's how I got us to that 15 million.
So we won't, if we get to the point where we're down by 19 million or 26 million, we won't have any problem with meeting payroll or paying the Board of Ed what we've agreed to pay them in our budget.
No.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm sure there's going to be more discussion, but I don't see any hands. Who would like to speak? Councilor Franco, then Councilor Heath.
Hi, thank you. So I'm trying to, I wrote some notes down, but I'm not exactly sure which direction I want to go. So my thought is businesses and people who are not, like businesses who aren't open and people who are not working, regardless of what we do, may not pay either way, just simply because they're not going to have the money to pay. So even if whatever we put here, there's most likely going to be a shortfall regardless. So my question is, with the cash flow shortage and getting through that first quarter, if there is deficit and we don't have enough money to pay, what are the options that would we be able to use fund balance? What are the options? Or what if the entities don't have money to be able to pay? Then what do we do? Or how would they get assistance?
Well, when I say we have a deficit, it's not like we won't have other revenue coming in and we won't have we won't run out of cash. It will just be much less cash than we had in prior years. Does that answer your question?
So as long as we don't have like a Sandy event or something, we should be fine.
Okay, so what about Groton City and Groton Long Point and all the other entities? What about them? Will they have enough to get through their first quarter?
That's why we brought them on here, because they analyzed that themselves.
Yeah, they would have to do their own analysis, and hopefully they've done that at this point, realizing that they won't receive any funds likely until November.
Mayor Hedrick, did you want to chime in to Councilor Franco's question?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Granatos. We've looked at it. We know what our monthly burn rate is that's fully loaded. And one of the things that we would have to do is we would have to identify who we would not pay. We have a fund balance, and we've evaluated where the fund balance is, and we should be fine for the first quarter. The problem is there's about a month to 6 weeks lag behind the town. Because, for example, when they do the tax assessment in July, we tend to get our revenue in August. And so so if we defer this to October, the city's looking at November or maybe even December, and that's a challenge, but we are looking at it. We have not specifically identified what we wouldn't pay, but we would probably things like putting off for the retirement and OPEB and things like that. I probably wouldn't put that aside because I would pay, because here's the thing, you got to make payroll and then you can pay your essential bills because they're not going to go away. You got to keep the essential services. And so, and that's the thing. Now, if the escrow account comes in, then that's good news. And if Pfizer and EB comes in, then that's good for us because Pfizer and EB is approximately 60 to 64% of my tax base. But those are the kind of things that we're going to have to look at and we're going to have to evaluate.
Okay. Are any other entities seeing that they would have a problem with their first quarter?
Mr. McBride, or I'm not sure if Groton Utilities or Pequannock Bridge wanted to speak.
This is David McBride. We've done the review and the analysis, and we think we'll be fine. We would agree that we'll need to curb some expenditures and kind of tighten things up for a few months, but we will be okay with this if this is the recommendation to proceed with.
Could I'd like to speak, please?
Is this Director Landry?
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. I just wanted to, oh my gosh, I'm sorry, the name just fell off my head from the city. Mayor Hedrick, sorry. I agree with what he says about the essential services. And we do hope that, I did my analysis, which is kind of almost like worst case scenario. But we do hope that, those people that can pay will continue to pay. So as we get money in, we would turn that over to the districts and to the town, just like we have in the past. But he is right that we collect the taxes all month. And by state statute, we're required to turn them over to the districts by the 10th of the month. And that's why when originally I had done my analysis only through September, and then I had added October, thinking if the taxes were due on October 1st, we would not actually see that money until the first or second week of November.
Okay. So let me ask you this. If an analysis goes through and it's actually worse than we think it's going to be with people being able to pay, let's just say they fall behind on their mortgages, because then you're not going to get the escrow because the banks aren't going to send it out. So, which trickles into us and down to the entities. So if the entities need assistance, is there a way for the town to help the entities by fronting them money that can be given back when the taxes come in, or we just keep them when the taxes come in? Am I making my question clear? I don't know.
No, I think you're maybe suggesting that we advance them funds kind of like a loan against future tax collections?
Yeah, if they request it.
Yeah, that'd be very difficult because if it's happening to them, it's going to be happening to us.
But could we use our fund balance then?
Well, when we, fund balance and cash kind of go hand in hand. So as
we're using our fund balance to match to make our cash flows until the taxes come in. So it'll be tied up with our cash outlay.
Right. Deputy Chief Driscoll, did you want to jump in?
Yeah.
I didn't hear what you said, Mr. Burt.
We would have to be in that situation, analyze where we're at, and really look at the numbers for that particular situation. There's just no way in advance to say we could do it.
All right.
Councilor Franco, Deputy Chief Driscoll has his hand up, please.
Okay.
I'm sorry, thank you. I just wanted to get a quick clarification. With the taxes coming in and the $19 to $26 million deficit that you're discussing, the town would still pay the higher districts their taxes, correct? Or would they be holding that back?
No, if whatever of your taxpayers that do pay, whatever comes in July, August, September, October, we would pay that over to you just like we do now.
Okay.
So if you do have taxpayers that, your escrow accounts would be paid over to you, assuming their accounts are in good standing, and any one of your other taxpayers, that do decide to come in and pay. Because I think we have to remember that this executive order was to put in for those people who are suffering I lost the word I want, economic downturn from this. And, you know, those of us that are fortunate enough to still be working, and we hope that those people will continue to pay if the deferment is put in, and that they won't say, well, the town's giving me 3 months, I just won't pay.
Okay.
Mr. McBride, did you wish to address Councilor Franco's question as well?
No, I had a question, but I guess I can wait until later.
Okay, I'm going to let her finish with her thoughts.
Okay, I also have another question regarding the paper copy. I don't know if it's paper copy, but the form request online, is that going to be a paper copy where somebody has to print it, complete it, send it in? Or is this going to be an electronic where you can go online, click a link, fill it out, and just press submit? Or will it be both?
I don't think we've made that decision yet. It's something that we'd have to talk to IT. I don't think currently we have any forms of that nature on the website that you can fill out and email.
We can certainly accept emailed forms.
Right.
Somebody could sign and scan from home.
Right. A scanned form, we would accept them by email or by regular mail, because we won't be able to take them unless we were to open back up. We wouldn't be able to take them here at the town hall. But that's the other, is they have to be filed by July 1st, and that's getting people to get them filed is going to be another issue.
They could drop in the green box too, in an envelope. We have a green lock box outside too that they could drop it off and we collect that every day.
Okay, so can we check with IT? Because I don't think it's a very hard task to get a link of that nature to maybe into a database where somebody can just fill out a form and send it in. Because during all of this, we're all stepping up and getting into technology some people don't feel comfortable with. So maybe this is something else that maybe the town could push forward and have a new technology going forward. But I think having the quick access to just be able to fill out a form and submit it with right there with a link would be much easier than the whole paper old-fashioned process. And if we have that, I think it would make me want to say, yes, I would want them to be able to fill out the link, the form, and submit it, or be able to have the option to do the paper copy.
I'm sorry. We have to remember too, they have to show proof of residency. So they'll have to be able to attach something, a bill or copy of their driver's license.
Yeah, and usually on those type of things, you can attach a photo or a PDF or something. I mean, it's just
so we can look into it. Yeah.
Because if you expect people to print the copy out, I mean, just to be able to find somewhere to print it, not everybody has a printer at home. It creates another obstacle. So my thought is at least a link would make it electronically much easier. And because you're just running into a lot of issues, I think, the other way. But that's it for now for me. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Franco. So we have a couple of attendees and several councilors who wish to speak. So it looks like Chief Richards is here and Deputy Chief Driscoll also. So let's go with Chief Richards first, please.
He's eligible to talk. Where's he at?
He's up there with it. Is he an attendee?
I'm trying to unmute.
Yep.
Okay, yeah, he's allowed.
Did you unmute him?
I'm trying to.
She can.
Okay.
It's not where, there we go. Nope. There we go. No, yes. Chief Richards, please. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. We're going to be good in Old Mystic. Our fund balance will take us through until the October, November period.
Thank you. And Deputy Chief Driscoll, I believe, had his hand up as well.
No, I'm all set.
You're all set? Okay. So then we're going to go back to the council, and we have Councilors Heed and Bordelon waiting to speak. So Councilor Heed, please.
Hey, turn it on.
Thank you. Thank you to Liam for constantly reminding me to turn on my speakers. And thank you to Cindy and the staff for all the work you've done. This is great analysis. But I was leaning towards the option. I tend to like requiring people to maybe have like the minimal amount of proof where there's like some sort of offense. So either homeowners or businesses, to make sure those who can pay do pay, and those who really are challenged, there's like a needs-based assessment of some sort. But the proposal, the most recent proposal, the last one that Andre asked for, Councilor Baumgartner, I'm sorry, asked for, that one, I think that might be the right thing to do, but I do have a couple questions too, actually. So for the staff, what does it look like to process, like how much staffing would you have to process the applications? What's the workload look like? And then what happens if we get into the fall or later in the summer and the fall, and the situation gets worse and we end up not collecting then either? Like at what point are we in trouble?
We're in trouble now.
Well, this is Cindy, if I can speak. We do have a staff of 5 in the tax office, and this is really such an unknown for us. I think that if we go with the deferment and the option that seems to be what everyone is most familiar with, I think it would not take an awful lot of staff time once we get a routine down, to work through those applications. And I do want to add here, and I apologize for not saying this earlier, I do have Melissa McGuire here, who is the tax collector, and she helped provide a lot of this information too. I do want to give her kudos for that too. But I think I'm done for now.
Did Ms. McGuire wish to speak?
Oh, no, I just wanted to let you know she was here. I'm not sure if I answered all of Councilor Heat's questions, though.
Yeah, we might have to get into it to see how many people apply, and like for those of us whose mortgage includes the escrow note, it's probably going to be paid for anyways.
Right. There's just so much of an unknown on this. We don't know. Right now, this is the 3 months is through July, but at any time the governor could extend this. So we are, trying to do worst case, hoping that it's going to be over, that with the tax collections will start coming in October, but all of it's an unknown. And if the money doesn't come in like we hope it is, I mean, we haven't, so far this year, we haven't really seen a downturn for March in income. I think we're beginning to see a little bit on the tax office side that people are not paying. So it's just very difficult to pinpoint how this is all going to play out.
This is John. I will say on Councilor Baumgartner's latest version, the nice thing about the homeowner one is that they have to prove residency, but they don't have to prove that they've been hurt economically. So that's less paperwork to go through.
Thank you. Okay, we have Councilor Bordelon who also wished to speak.
Thank you. Just looking at this, I know it's a tough decision. I just had a couple questions. At the end of this deferment period, what would be the rate? Would there be a penalty beyond the 3 months, or would it be the standing old rate, or would it double?
No, I believe the executive order states that if it's not paid in full by October 1st, then it reverts back to July 1 at the standard 18% a year.
Right. Okay. And that would, so after that point, I think it's just tough. I mean, because I think even some people that aren't being affected from a layoff now, we don't know. There's so much unknown. Certain jobs, are decreasing hours and partially laying off, and it's still, there's still effects going on. Even the tax after 3 months of 18% is still pretty high, I think, for folks who, if you don't have it now, you're going to be playing catch up on all your bills. So 18% in 3 months is still going to be a lot. It's tough either way. I do think that the people who can pay, hopefully they will. But is this the only combination that we're allowed to do is 1 and 4?
What's one?
Well, we thought this covered pretty much every option out there, really, that was feasible.
So there's no other options basically other than these 6.
Now, plus we don't have resolutions written, but we couldn't think of any other options.
So there could be other options, but they're just not currently on here today, possibly.
Could, but they'd be pretty, I can't imagine, anything else would probably mean covering all businesses, which would not be workable for the city or for us.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Councilor Aubrey?
Joe had his hand up before me.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Am I being recognized, Madam Mayor?
Yes, certainly.
Thank you. I'm concerned that we're looking at a $26 million deficit out of a $90 million billing. Am I correct about that?
Yes.
And we think we can get along with that and still do our normal function. That is, our primary responsibility is to pay our payroll, which is the biggest part of our budget. Well, the Board of Education is the biggest part of our budget, but the payroll of the remaining budget is the biggest part, and we're 26 million out of 90 million behind. Given that as it is, I accept your word for it that we can meet those obligations. I'm concerned about giving a blanket deferment to every homeowner, only because there are some people who are out of work and who are desperate and need help. But there are some people who are still working, and there are other people with sufficient means in their own personal reserves that they can continue to meet their obligations. I don't think we can compromise the needs of the town with a blanket deferment. I think we should require that people prove their eligibility. I myself am in favor of both a deferment and an interest rate reduction to 3%. However, I don't think it should be just given away to anybody that puts his hand up. I would put my hand up, even though, well, I don't know, I'll probably be able to pay my taxes. But on the other hand, I think we have to carry on and we have to continue to run the town as best we can. And just having a blanket giveaway, I think, is casting the helm loose and letting the wind take us where it will.
Thank you. Councilor Aubrey.
My feeling is that I think we're going to have a bigger problem when we get into the winter, but we'll have to hope that everything gets a little better by then. But it seems like it's always harder to pay bills in the winter than it is in the summer. But I think that we should give a deferment to homeowners and businesses that we closed. And then function, those that have been able to function and be paying their taxes. Didn't make as much as they hoped they would by being open, then they should talk with us about a deferment. But I think there has to be some corners on this. And I think that, you know, absolutely, if the government said you got to close, well, then certainly that says to those people, you probably will need our help. But I wish I felt a little better about the future, like Cindy. I'm really concerned about coming January, what we're going to be feeling. But I would have in it that it's homeowners deferment for homeowners and businesses not open. And then the rest of what you've all been talking about is fine with me. I don't know if that can be that way or not.
Leanne, that's pretty much what it is for that newest option.
Okay, I'll read it again. So it's pretty much in there, says that if your business was closed,
you're eligible. Then you're eligible, and then if you're not eligible, then you'd fall under the low interest rate program. But yes, if you're eligible, if you've been hurt by it, then you would get you do the paperwork and get the deferment.
And you know, I was going to mention too with Rachel. I understand some people are great on a computer and they can do anything on a computer, but you know, we have a great part of our population that can't. So I think it would not be that difficult to put up a box outside the town hall that had the forms, and they could put it back in the box that you can't open. And if need be, we could run it one time in the paper, the senior center news, to get it out. But I think to try to create a new program, if it's going to be of any great cost to do that, I think I'd rather find another way to do it. I mean, we could put it online, you could pull it up, you could fill it out, then you could scan it and send it back if you're a more sophisticated user of a computer. And if you're not, just come get the form and have it outside. That's my thoughts. Okay, Rachel, get me.
Thank you, Councilor Aubrey. Councilor Melendez, you haven't spoken yet. Did you wish to speak on this item?
No, I'm good for now.
Okay, so we have second time hands. And then we'll go to Councilor Bordelon, and then I kind of want to sift through everything if we can and maybe eliminate a couple options and then have further discussion. So we'll go back to Councilor Bordelon at this point.
Thank you. I just wanted to check on under needs. If a small business was shut down, they would just demonstrate a need. But what about a small business that stayed open but had a decrease in revenues, so they're still being affected, but they're not necessarily closed? Would they qualify under this?
Yeah, I think what did it say? Reduction of 30%. I believe it said a reduction of 30%.
They have to show a reduction of 30%.
Yeah.
Okay, and then I do like Councilor Franco's idea of having an online app, because some people do not live in the town, and so to get the form, they'd have to have it mailed. There'll be lag time to receive it. So having the form online, and as well as Councilor Aubrey stated, having the box as well, opening it up to both options, I think would really help all types of users. Thank you.
Okay, so if we could at this point, if you can take a look at the options that were sent out, I think from what we're hearing that the across the board deferment for everybody is not a good idea according to staff. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that leaves us with then option 1, option 3, option 4, 5, and 6. So let's talk about this for a minute. And no one's actually mentioned option 5 yet, is just applying the low interest rates. Is that something that's not what you're interested in? It sounds like most people are interested in a deferral. Is anybody interested in just pursuing the option that only calls for the reduction in interest rates? Okay, I'm not seeing that. So then that rules out number 5. So this is helpful. So then we have it down to 4 options.
Oh, I think she's doing from email earlier today.
Yeah, I'm sorry. We have resolutions that were explained. The first one, there are 4 that are on the table. Tax deferment for those eligible and low interest rate. Tax deferment for those eligible. Tax deferment for all homeowners regardless of eligibility, and for other categories for those that are eligible. And then the option that Councilor Baumgardner asked for, which is the mixture with no homeowner eligibility and low interest for ineligible people. So we have it narrowed in that regard. Now, do we want to go back and forth on this, or do we want staff to point out? John or Mr. Burt or Director Landry, did you want to speak to any of those 4? And are there any potential pitfalls with any of those 4 that were left on the table?
I don't have any concerns.
Director Landry?
I'm just looking at these.
Okay. It looks like the biggest question that Councilor Melendez wishes to speak. Go ahead, Councilor Melendez.
Yeah, I just, what's the difference between 4 and 6? They seem pretty similar. I don't know if there's some nuance there.
And I'm gonna defer to Mr. Burt on this because I asked those same questions earlier.
Are you working off the email, Mayor?
Yes, number 4 is resolution deferment program, no eligibility required of homeowners, tax deferment for all homeowners regardless of eligibility, and for other categories for those that are eligible, meaning all residential gets deferment. That's
Right. So basically that one does not include the low interest rate. So the new one would put that with the low interest rate program.
Right.
So if you're a homeowner, you automatically get it. If you're a business that's been hurt, that you're meaning you're eligible, then you get the deferment. But let's say you were a business that wasn't hurt, that didn't get the deferment, you would then fall into the low interest rate category. So something for everybody, potentially.
Councilor Melendez, does that clarify it for you?
Yeah, so in number 4, there is no low interest rate at all.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Can we get rid of 4?
So, well, we have to see what other people would like. Did the director of finance want to add anything about these 4 options that are on the table right now?
I don't think I do. Would you like to add something, Melissa?
My concern would just be if you require people to fill out an application. If we have a hard time now with people complying with items, so I would be concerned if a person was affected by COVID that really did need it and, you know, didn't become aware of, you know, the program, that we would disqualify them because they didn't fill out the application by July 1st, because that's what would happen.
Right. But with the mixture one, the newest one, number 6, the homeowners wouldn't have to do anything. I mean, we're not gonna be able to get away from businesses. They're gonna have to show their
Right.
So.
Yep.
And obviously, I agree with everybody's comments on finding a way to have copies outside in a box, plus doing it online if we can, and large, you know, very good campaign for education.
Councilor Portland, do you have another question?
Yeah, speaking after, I believe it was Melissa that just spoke, if I have her name correct. The other concern, thinking of some people that I know that are affected by COVID in different states, for example, where they don't have any loved ones and they're hospitalized, but they would qualify for the deferment, and not being able to know that they could fill this out. Is there going to be any type of grace period where if they prove that they were in the hospital or something, that they could submit a form so that they could qualify still?
You can't after the date. It's not allowed. But if,
So
again, if you do the homeowner, though, all eligible for the homeowners, then that won't be a concern.
It'd be automatic.
Right.
So basically number 6, the way that I'm understanding, is a combination of 1 and 4. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
So can we narrow this down any further at this point? It's sounding like most people are interested in 1 or 6 at this point. Am I hearing that right? Councilor Franco, you look like you wish to speak.
So the email that I have, I'm just gonna throw it out there. There are like 6 resolutions.
Yeah.
It's the whole resolution in each one. They're all basically named resolution, and they're not. The part that I can see is like resolution adopting, and then it cuts off the next word. So I can't distinguish between the difference, and they're not numbered. And
The email I sent out put them in order of how they were attached. So if you look at the text of my email down at the bottom where it lists them, you should be able to click on the corresponding one in order.
all right, because I'm just letting you know, like, they're not numbered, and so somebody might be saying number 6 is this, but
well, she's not looking at the attachment, so she's looking at the text of the email.
Right.
So where exactly does it say which one's number 1?
What my email to you sending the resolutions, if you look right in the email, it says number 1, resolution adopting both programs, low interest for persons who are not eligible, meaning, so it was sent at 2:24 today, and then I updated it with the 6th one late in the day, like what would that be, about 5 o'clock, about 4:45 or so.
Okay, so that's what I'm saying.
454.
Maybe I'm missing something. I'm looking at the one that you sent at 5:45 or 4:54.
Right. Yeah,
And
if you look down the trail of the email, it would have all of it. And the same thing at 2:24.
all right, so that's what I'm trying to say is like, I'm in resolution number 1 right now. I'm looking at it.
Well, and if you
Where does it say this is resolution like number 1?
Again, I attached the attorney will tell us which one to use. I would just look at that list of 1 through 6. You don't need to worry about what attachment it is right now.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is like,
yeah, I don't understand why if you got the email, it would have the list on the email. If you can click into the email.
Yeah, I'm looking like.
I could take a screenshot and send it to you.
Okay.
If you're in the email that was at 4:54, and you scroll down till you get the forwarded email from 2:24, there's broken out there the list of all the different options, and he
Okay.
had them numbered at that point.
So if I go back to the 2 o'clock one, it's like 1 through 5.
Yeah.
Right, and then the 6th is the brand new one that Councilor Baumgartner introduced.
Right.
Okay. So I have to open each one to match up 1 equals what this says because it's the title. Got it. Because I'm like, if we're talking 1 through 6, I'm like, I didn't have that. Thank you.
So Councilor Melendez has his hand up.
Yes, I would like to just come out and support the 6th plan and just thank you for Councilor Baumgartner and town staff for figuring out a good plan going forward.
And did you just want to recap that for the public listening? What's included in that?
Okay, so Plan 6 is for all homeowners, they get the tax deferment. And then for businesses, they have to, in order to get the deferment, they have to show that they are, they've had a 30% decrease in revenue to get the deferment. And if they have not, then they automatically get the lower interest rate of 3% down from 18%.
Thank you, Councilor Melendez. I am not seeing hands. I'm looking. Anybody else wish to speak? Councilor Aubrey, did you wish to speak?
No, thank you.
Okay.
People that are not homeowners have to still prove eligibility, the renters.
Okay, I'm hearing a voice, but I don't know where it's coming from.
Is that me?
Sounds like Cindy.
I'm sorry, it was me speaking. Sorry.
Did you wish to address the council?
Question.
I was just asking John a question.
Okay. I didn't want to have anybody miss out on anything. All right, so are we then, is anybody considering anything other than 1 or 6 at this point?
No.
Okay. How to do this? What's the best way? Are we in consensus for resolution 6, which is Councilor Baumgartner's resolution, which is a mixture of deferment and the low interest, reduced interest rate? Is anyone objecting to that one? Councilor Zepari, did you wish to speak to this?
I think I already have spoken to this, but resolution number 6 is an automatic exemption or an automatic deferment for any homeowner. And there are many homeowners who can afford to pay their taxes. And I don't think we should give a free pass to them. We're trying to, in taking this effort, we're trying to give some relief to the people who have been impacted most by the economic impact of the changes we've made in our distancing and our social distancing, in closing of businesses, and people who have lost their jobs. But there are a lot of people who still have their jobs and who still have their incomes and who still have substantial assets. Those people should still pay their taxes. So I'm opposed to number 6 simply because it gives a blanket deferment to everyone who owns a house. And not only that, it doesn't give a blanket, not all of the people who own a house get a deferment, because most people who own a house are paying on a mortgage, and the mortgage usually includes an escrow account to pay taxes. So I would prefer to see us determine who really needs help and give those people the help they need. I think a $26 million deficit is really harmful to a town where we're working with a $90 million budget for the year. And a $26 million deficit in October is striking to me. So I think we ought to minimize the impact on the town, but at the same time, give relief to those who need it. And option one is really the one that does the best job of that.
Okay, I was just going to ask you if you had one in particular. So option one then adopts both programs, the low interest and the deferment, but it includes an eligibility requirement. Is anyone else in favor of anything but 1 or 6? And you'd like to speak to that? So we've kind of narrowed. Councilor Aubrey.
I just wanted to mention to Joe that by law, escrow payments have to be sent. Those would not be deferred. Those would come to the town no matter what.
That's what I said.
I don't think so, but all right, you say so. We will get that money no matter how we write this. We'll get the money from the banks. But maybe we could add to it that that you have to show that you've been unemployed. You know, a homeowner that is unemployed would be.
Then you're picking number 1. You can't do it with option 6.
Okay.
Councilor Bordelon has her hand up.
Thanks, John.
Thank you. So for under the homeowner section, which Councilor Zapiri was talking about, showing eligibility, now for businesses we said 30%, what would it be for the average homeowner? What would we have to show? What are the guidelines going to be?
I read it at the beginning. Hold on one second. Let me.
John,
Okay.
the answer is 20%, John.
Okay. No, but for the homeowners, it's have been furloughed without pay, had hours significantly reduced, and then are unemployed, but it resulted in at least a 20% reduction in income, household income.
And so a decrease in 20% of house. Okay. Because you might have families where you have one person working and one not.
Right.
And depending on their income situation, decrease of 20%, depending on someone's personal life or bills, like let's just say they recently battled a health concern, and now one person is furloughed or out of work, and they have a decrease, but they're not quite 20%, or maybe they are 20%. Are we looking at their debt to income ratio? I know that gets funny, but the problem is that a lot of people have a lot of other situations. And so I'm just wondering, when you start to look for those qualifications, what will that look like? You know what I mean? To make sure that we're meeting the needs of everybody, because a decrease is a decrease. I mean, there's a lot of increases right now for people, you know, that are out of work, even if one person's working. I mean, most people that are approved for loans or mortgages are approved based on a dual income sometimes. And so that's a big deal. That's a big deal. So thank you.
We have Councilors Baumgardner and Heed in the queue, and Franco. So Baumgardner, Heed, then Franco.
Yeah, I just want to point out or ask, I don't know if this is asking a question or making a point. I kind of, you know, I'm supporting, I agree with Joe in the sense that there should be some sort of offense for homeowners. But when I consider a blanket versus a requirement that they fill out an application, where I have to ask myself, who's going to actually be doing this? I think most people who are younger, in their middle ages, that they're going to have a mortgage where it's automatically deducted via the escrow. I would suspect the older people who have been in their homes a lot longer, who are the ones who actually, you know, you pay your mortgage down to a certain level and you have to pay your tax bill separately. You get a bill from the town clerk and you go in, or assessor, and you go in and you pay your taxes that way, or electronically, however people are paying them. So I'm guessing that the older people probably have the savings. They may not need it, but I still think it, you know, it might be. I don't know who would be exempt from paying taxes. Really, I think most people have a mortgage, is what I'm getting at. So I don't know that it would make a difference.
Councilor Baumgartner.
Yes, I very much appreciate Councilor Zapiri's remarks. Again, I think it's important to note Town Manager Burt's comment about the additional burden it would place on staff to have to go through reams of applications in the case that homeowners would not get a blanket exemption for tax deferment. So I think again the sixth option is the best approach to take, considering that it will be least onerous on town staff and their time. And additionally, there are some safeguards with the sixth option for the town maintaining key revenue sources from tax income that would come from businesses. Thank you.
Councilor Franco.
Thank you. So what are we going to qualify as proof that you've had a reduction of, let's just say, 20% in your household income from last year? I mean, how are you going to prove that?
This is John, and then Cindy will talk. Really, at this point, we're going to check with other towns and see what the best idea out there is. We can't say at this point what we're going to use, honestly, unless Cindy has some other.
No, that was the discussion that we had, is what we were going to, the state really didn't give much guidance on what you're supposed to compare.
And, and they might come out with more guidance,
right,
though. They've been coming out with more stuff.
Is the 20% this week's paycheck to last week's to January's? It's unknown at this point.
Right. So that right there creates an issue. And then also for the businesses, what is the qualifying? Are you going to do a profit and loss compared to the same quarter last year? I mean, what are you doing?
Well, it is specified in the application for the businesses. It says they have to show 30% decrease from April to June of 20 compared to April to June of 19. So it's more specific.
Like a profit and loss statement?
I would think something. I mean, that's odd. It's an odd quarter. No, April, May, and June is a quarter. So maybe, but again, there's no guidance. That is something that we would have to figure out what we're going to accept. And we would hope that there might be some guidance from the state, because you would think that every town in the state should be using the same criteria.
You would think. And if we have to come up with our own, I'm assuming for business, it would be a profit and loss statement probably. And would the town be actually vetting any of this, or are we just going to be taking people at their word because there may be an inundation of some kind of amount of requests? How would that be handled?
And that's another question that we don't have an answer to. There's a part that says if someone goes to the trouble and fills it out, proves their proof of residency, gives us some type of documentation, take a homeowner, provides a pink slip or whatever. But on the option number 6, they wouldn't have to even provide any documentation. It would be automatic for the homeowners. Right. So that would cut down on the number of applications.
Right. So even if they were submitting all these documents, nobody's actually going to vet them, probably, because I'm sure nobody's going to be calling to see, hi, I'm calling for the employment of so-and-so to see if her hours were actually reduced. Nobody's going to vet that she actually lost. So requesting some of this documentation may be a bit much. So I can understand for the homeowners not requesting that information. For the businesses, that would be a different story. As some businesses are doing okay, and other ones have been, I think a majority of them have been impacted by this. So, and I think filling out a form, and the form that that we have, it's a form that was created by the state. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yes, correct.
Right, so that's just a blanket form that the state requests. So it's not like we're going to change anything on there. That's the form they gave us.
Yeah.
Okay, so I would be in favor of having the businesses fill out a form stating their lowering of their revenue with probably like some kind of profit and loss or something showing from last year at the same time, and then and having the residents who are homeowners not have to provide anything. So let me ask one more thing. Between the two that we're basically down to, is there any difference in these regarding property owners, like of rental? Is there any difference in that?
For the rentals?
Yeah, the landlords.
The landlords have a special section on the form, and they, I think the attorney had alluded to this, they have to show proof that they have given some type of forbearance or discount to their tenants in order to be eligible. And again, that goes, what are they going to provide us?
Okay, so between the two, the options that we're down to, there's nothing changed there.
Yeah.
No.
And these are so the only options that are the difference between these two are showing proof or not. That's it. That's what we're down to.
For the homeowners.
Okay, so I'm in favor of, like we've already discussed, people with mortgages most likely have escrow, and that's just going to be automatically done. And I'm in favor of not, for homeowners not having to show any proof. Thank you.
So you're in favor of Councilor Baumgartner's proposal, which is the blanket deferment for homeowners and then other people eligibility. And if you're not eligible, you get the lower interest.
Yes, I think I can be in favor of that. Thank you.
Okay, so that is option 6. We have Councilor Aubry and Baumgartner. I think Councilor Aubry had her hand up, correct?
Well, I appreciate Rachel's questions. They're always good. But I think we have to remember with something like this that we're looking at cutting back things in order to make this work. So we can't really put anything else on a department that we have now if we can possibly keep from doing that. So I think we need to go with the KISS philosophy, and keep this as simple as we possibly can. And I think other than maybe a business that comes in and says I think businesses that we said had to be closed automatically get the deferment. If somebody's open and they want to come and show us that their business has been bad, but we got to just keep it simple. You get too complicated, nobody's going to understand it. So I think the majority of people, if they can, and there certainly will be some that can't, they're probably going to call up and talk to somebody. And we just need to keep it very simple when they get those calls. So that's my thought. I think that this one to me is probably about the best.
Okay, we have people have spoken, everybody's spoken already, and we have people that are speaking multiple times. So we have Councilor Baumgartner, and I think Councilor Zepari had his hand up as well, correct?
No, I'm okay, thank you. I said what I've had to say.
Okay, Councilor Baumgartner, did you wish to speak to anything at this point, sir?
Yeah, no, I'd just like to align my remarks, the remarks made by Councilor Aubry and Franco. I'm sure Councilor Zepari will appreciate the saying, keep it simple, stupid, as it's a mantra that originally originated from the U.S. Navy. But I think, for the purposes, again, of making a very simple process that taxpayers, whether, it's homeowners, a simple process that it's easily understandable for homeowners, and that, making it clear to them they wouldn't have to fill out any onerous paperwork. I think that, is of critical importance. And it's for the businesses, I think it's also important to distinguish the difference between a struggling small business in, today and our much larger corporations. I'm not sure those larger corporations will be eligible to defer these taxes and have a good case for deferring their taxes, as there's a high likelihood they're income has not taken a hit by a threshold that has exceeded 3%. So and with that, I'll yield the floor, and I hope if there is some consensus, we can move forward with a motion.
So Councilor Parker has her hand up. Councilor Parker?
I'm hearing that. I do have a question. This does not only pertain to homeowners in their property tax. This also includes car taxes, correct?
Sorry.
It does.
Yes.
All right. I just want people to hear that because we're talking, it sounds only like homeowners. It only sounds like the homes. I just wanted to have that clarification out there. I'm actually in favor of number 6 because it does not put the burden on the town staff, because we do not know how long this is going to last, this current pandemic situation, and we may still be stuck in home or quarantined in some cases, and a lot of people may not have access to be able to get out and do a lot of things. So if we can ease the burden of the people, I think that's the best option. And like it was stated, escrow accounts are automatically going to go to the town as it is. So I'm in favor of option 6. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Parker. We have, I'm sorry.
This is Cindy Landry. Can I speak for a moment? Can
Yes,
I speak
please.
To, Councilor Parker? I just wanted to note that she's correct. This applies to real estate, motor vehicle, personal property, electric, water, and sewer charges. We keep talking just real estate, but it does apply to all of those categories.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Perry and then Councilor Franco.
Just a question for Cindy. Does it also apply to people who own more than one house at the time?
I believe that there's nothing that would eliminate a dual household or owning 2 homes.
Thank you.
Councilor Franco is next.
So that was my question. How is this going to affect like a water bill or municipal utilities of any sort? And how, like, can you just explain that?
Okay, what we have in the town of Groton would be just the sewer use charges. And it would be, they would receive 90 days deferment based on the date of the bill.
Mm-hmm.
So the bills that were due July 1st, excuse me, or due April 1st have to be paid in full by July 1st.
So they would not need to fill out a form if we went on option 6. As a homeowner, that would blanket all of those.
Right. Yes, correct.
And everything.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
May I?
Who's speaking, please?
Councilor Parker.
Oh, yes, go ahead.
Director Landry, we can also state on those bills that if they have a little bit, they can apply any money towards it. Deferment is only for the taxes on it, right?
Well, I think you're asking, can they make partial payments?
Yes.
Yes, anyone can make partial payments. That's correct.
Right. I just want everybody to hear that part so that if they come into some money or have been helped out, that they can put partial payment on it, so that'll help ease their burden a little bit coming down the road. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilor Borderline, do you have your hand up?
Yes, it was partially answered, I believe. My other question was looking at all the other utilities, would it allow for, like, say you're in a financial hardship and you decide, you know what, we're decreased by X%. I can handle all my utilities right now, but just not the mortgage. So they could come in and apply, get approved, and maybe be deferred for certain parts of that if they chose.
They would get the deferral, but they could still make payments to wherever they want, right?
Right.
They would get the deferral that's blanket, but then they could choose what they want to pay partial on or all of for. Yeah, they could pick and choose what they pay.
Okay, so the deferment would automatically blanketly cover all
Yes.
of the accounts, and then they could pay which ones they chose to.
Correct.
Thank you.
I am going to ask if Councilor Baumgartner would like to move a resolution at this point, because it looks like we have a majority in favor of the last resolution we received today. Do you have that ready,
But-
Councilor Baumgartner, that you would like to?
Mayor, it would just be a recommendation for a resolution. At this point, you would read the resolution in a special council meeting.
Okay, Councilor Baumgartner, would you like to make that recommendation?
Yes, so what is the draft motion? Just to clarify, Mayor and Manager Burt, what would be the appropriate motion to make?
If you're looking to recommend a resolution for, and I would just very briefly state the gist of it, Mr. Burt, is that acceptable?
How about if we do the title from the actual resolution? Rich, Mr. Cody, would that be okay? The town, a motion to recommend a resolution titled the Town of Groton. Well, I guess we gotta say what it's for though. Okay, here's the title of the thing, which we could probably glean out of it. Town of Groton Resolution electing the Municipal Deferment Program and Loan Program for ineligible persons and businesses. Is that the right one?
Yeah.
Under C.
Yeah,
Doesn't really explain it though. I guess
But
we
if
need to
you could
explain
say, if they make a motion to adopt a resolution for, to participate in both the deferment and the low interest.
Right.
Right. And then the full resolution, when they adopt it, will give the details.
Okay, if you just want to do a motion, Cindy's suggestion is a motion to adopt, to recommend a resolution that would participate in the deferment program and the low interest rate program. And then when we get to the resolution, it'll give the details.
Okay, so I'll make a motion to approve the resolution electing the town of Groton to participate in the municipal deferment program and low interest program for ineligible persons and businesses under the governor's executive orders 7S and 7W. So moved.
Second, Melendez.
Moved by Baumgartner and seconded by Melendez. Councilor Parker has her hand up.
I'm sorry, are we doing the recommendation and we did a motion under the town council meeting?
Yes, yes. So he's making, he's recommending for a resolution like we always do in Cal. And then once we vote this, we will recess and then we'll convene a special town council meeting. And at that point, the full resolution will be read. Is that correct, Mr. Burt?
Correct.
So, okay. I just want to be clear. I wasn't sure if Councilor Baumgartner said I'm moving a resolution or he said I'm making a recommendation. I just wanted to clarify that.
Councilor Baumgartner, you're recommending a resolution, correct?
Correct.
Thank you. Okay, so we have on the floor a recommendation for the resolution that is the combination of the deferment and the low interest loans as per the last resolution that you received from the manager and the attorneys. Any further discussion on this item? Seeing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Councilor Zapiri, are you opposed?
Yeah, yes, I'm opposed because although it's not stated.
Okay,
in
there's
the
no discussion.
resolution,
I'm
it's-
sorry, are there any abstentions? So that passes 8 in favor, 1 opposed, Zapiri, and 0 abstentions. Thank you. At this point.
May I comment, please?
Yes, you may comment.
I will, when this comes before the council, I will vote in favor of it. Because it is, I think we should have unanimous agreement on it. However, I am concerned about a blanket policy, as I said before.
Point of
Even though the resolution does
Councilor
not so
Franco?
state, this
What is
is
your
a
point of order,
blanket
Councilor Franco?
policy. I'm sorry?
Off topic, we're between items.
No, it's a blanket deferment for all homeowners, and I think that's a mistake.
Already been debated.
I will go along with it.
Thank you, Councilor Zapiri. At this point, we will recess. It is 8:22. We are recessing the cow at 8:22. Okay, so we've recessed the cow. All right. It is Tuesday, April 21st, and it is 8:23. And I will call to order the Town Council special meeting. All councilors are present. We have a quorum. The first item is Roman numeral 2, the appointment of the Rules Committee. According to Rule 9C, I appoint Chairman Overy, Councilor Parker, and Councilor Baumgartner. We are now on to Roman numeral 3, new business, 2020-248-1, Governor's Executive Order 7S. And I believe this is Councilor Parker. Do you have the resolution in front of you, Councilor Parker?
I do.
Would you please read the one that was sixth in order?
All right.
The most recent one that was sent at 4:54?
Yes.
Thank you.
I make a motion for the Town of Groton resolution electing the municipal deferment program and loan program for ineligible persons and businesses, or business, under Executive Orders 7S and 7W. Whereas on April 1st, 2020, the Governor of the State of Connecticut issued Executive Order 7S in response to the COVID-19 pandemic.
Excuse me, Councilor Parker? It's very
Yes?
difficult to hear you. Okay, there, you're clear now. Thank you.
Okay, I'll start from whereas on April 1st, the Governor of the State of Connecticut issued Executive Order 7S in response to the COVID-19 pandemic and amended it April 9th, 2020 by Executive Order 7W, Section 1. Whereas Section 6 of Executive Order 7S, as amended by Executive Order 7W, Section 1, provides for the town of Groton to participate in a deferment program in order to afford taxpayers and ratepayers relief from payments due on or after April 1st, 2020 through July 1st, 2020. Whereas Section 6 of Executive Order 7S, as amended by Executive Order 7W, Section 1, also provides for the town of Groton to participate in a low interest rate program in order to afford taxpayers and ratepayers relief from interest on payments due on or after April 1st, 2020 through July 1st, 2020. Whereas the town council finds it to be the town's best interest to participate in both the deferment program and the municipal low interest rate program pursuant to Executive Orders 7S and 7W under the terms and conditions of this resolution. Now, therefore, the town council adopts the following resolutions. Be it resolved that 1, adoption of deferment program, homeowners not required to demonstrate eligibility. The town council, acting as the town of Groton's legislative body, hereby elects to participate in the deferment program under Section 6 of Executive Order 7S and Section 1 of Executive Order 7W. Notwithstanding Section 12-146 of the General Statutes and subject to paragraphs 3 and 4 below, during the period of April 1st, 2020 through and including July 1st of 2020, the town hereby offers to eligible taxpayers, businesses, nonprofits, and residents a deferment by 90 days of payments on any taxes on real property, personal property, or motor vehicles, or municipal water, sewer, and electric rates, charges or assessments for such tax rate, charge, or assessment, or CPACE benefit assessment charges that becomes due and payable on or between such dates. Eligible taxpayers, businesses, nonprofits, and residents are those that attest to or document significant economic impact by COVID-19 and or those that document go to the next page, are providing relief to those significantly affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. However, taxpayers who own residential real property and reside thereon are deemed eligible with respect to such property and do not need to file a certification or documentation. 3, such taxpayer eligibility under paragraph 2 may be demonstrated by completing the deferment certification form. Are we still doing that? Such Such taxpayer eligibility under paragraph 2 may be demonstrated by completing the deferment certification form available on the town's website at www.groton-ct.gov, which form must be filed on or before July 1st, 2020, with accompanying information. Filing protocols and content for the certification will be established and published on the town's website. Eligibility shall be determined by the tax collector and or his or /her designee, and such determination shall be final, and compliance with the terms and conditions may be determined by audit and communication with third parties, including tenants and lessees. Notwithstanding anything to the contrary, any taxpayer that rents or leases to any commercial, residential, or institutional tenant or lessees shall only be eligible for the deferment program if said landlord provides documentation to the town that the parcel has or will suffer a significant income decline on account of impact by COVID-19, or that commensurate forbearance was offered to his, her, its tenants or lessees. Such landlord eligibility must be demonstrated by completing the landlord certification form available on the town's website at www.groton-ct.gov, which form must be filed on or before July 1st, 2020, with the requisite information. Filing protocols for the certification will be established and published on the town's website. Eligibility shall be determined by the tax collector and or his or her designee, and such determination shall be final, and compliance with the terms and conditions may be determined by audit and communication with third parties, including tenants and lessees. Sorry, give me 1 second.
You're doing great. Thank you. We appreciate it.
Adoption of low interest rate program. The town council, acting as the town of Groton's legislative body, hereby elects to participate in the low interest rate program under section 6 of Executive Order at 7S and section 1 of Executive Order 7W for those who are ineligible for deferment program. Notwithstanding section 12-146 of the general statutes and subject to paragraph 3 below, for those who are not eligible for deferment under section 1, paragraph 2 of this resolution, the delinquent portion of the principal of any taxes on real property, personal property, or motor vehicles, or municipal waters, sewer, and electric charges or assessments, or part thereof, or C-PACE benefit assessment charges, shall be subject to interest at the rate of 3% per annum for 3 months from time when it became due and payable until the same is paid. For any such tax, rate, charge, or assessment due and payable from April 1st through and including July 1st, 2020, unless such delinquent portion is subject to interest and penalties at less than 3% per annum. I hope I'm saying that right. Following the 3 months, the portion that remains delinquent shall be subject to interest and penalties as previously established, and any portion of the principal of any taxes on real property, personal property, or motor vehicles, or municipal water, sewer, and electric rates, charges, or assessments, or part thereof that had been delinquent on or prior to April 1st shall be subject to interest at the rate of 3% per annum for 3 months from April 1st, 2020, unless such delinquent portion is subject to interest and penalties at less than 3% per annum. Following the 3 months, the portion that remains delinquent shall be subject to interest and penalties as previously established. Notwithstanding anything to the contrary, any taxpayer that rents or leases to any commercial, residential, institutional tenant or lessee shall be only eligible for the low interest rate program if said landlord offers commensurate forbearance to tenants or lessees upon their request. Such taxpayers' eligibility may be demonstrated by completing the certification form available on the town's website at www.groton-ct.gov, which form must be filed on or before July 1st, 2020. Filing protocols and content for the certification will be established and published on the town's website. Eligibility shall be determined by the tax collector and or his or her designee, and such determination shall be final. And compliance with the terms and conditions may be determined by audit and communication with third parties, including tenants and lessees. Conditions for both programs: financial institutions and mortgage servicers that hold property tax payments in escrow on behalf of a borrower shall continue to remit property taxes to the municipality so long as the borrower remains current on their mortgage or is in a forbearance of deferment program, irrespective of the borrower's eligibility for or participation in the deferment program. Nothing in this resolution affects any provision of the Connecticut general statutes relating to continuing, recording, and releasing property tax liens, and the precedents and enforcement of taxes, rates, charges, and assessments shall remain applicable to any deferred tax, rate, charge, or assessment, or installment or portion thereof. The town manager is directed to notify the secretary of the Office of Policy and Management of the adoption of this resolution on or before April 25th, 2020. The town manager and or his designee is directed to develop and implement a reasonable outreach program to inform taxpayers of the opportunities in this resolution. I so move.
Duly seconded. Well done, Councilor Parker.
Moved by Parker, seconded by Baumgartner. Yes, thank you for reading that. Okay, at this point, is there discussion? We've just had an hour and a half worth of discussion, or 2 hours worth of discussion on this. I'm assuming there is no further discussion, or would anybody like to speak at this point? I'm not seeing any hands, so I will call for a vote on the resolution 2022-48-1, Governor's Executive Order 7S, as read by Councilor Parker and seconded by Councilor Baumgartner. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? So moved unanimously. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by Zapari, seconded by Parker. All those in favor of adjournment, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? So moved unanimously. Town Council special meeting is adjourned at 8:35 p.m. Okay, at 8:35 p.m., Committee of the Whole is back in session. And we are on to 2022-47, 2021 Historic Document Preservation Grant. This is on page 58. Councilor Franco, I believe we are on your turn if you have that handy.
I do.
Excellent. Thank you, ma'am.
Make a motion to recommend a resolution of Burt to execute and deliver a contract with the Connecticut State Library for a historic documents preservation grant. I so move.
Second.
Moved by Franco and seconded by Heed. Mr. Burt, I think the clerk was here. I'm not sure. Madam Clerk, are you with us?
Yeah, I'm here. Yes, I'm here if anyone has any questions.
Thank you. Does anyone have questions for the clerk regarding the historic preservation document grant? Okay, I guess they're all talked out, Madam Clerk.
Oh, I don't, yeah, it's a great program, and I'm happy to be able to utilize the funds to the point where it really helps the preservation of our documents.
Well, thank you. We appreciate you looking out for the town's history. All those in favor of 2022-47 Historic Document Preservation Grant, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? So moved unanimously. We are on to Councilor Heed for 2020-239 FYE 2020 fourth quarter transfers. And this is on page 61 in the packet. Councilor Heed.
Make a motion to recommend a resolution for fiscal year ending 2020 fourth quarter transfers and refer to the RTM. I so move.
Second.
Moved by Heed, seconded by Baumgartner. Mr. Burt or Director Landry, did you wish to address this?
I'll just give you a brief overview. As you know, the town charter provides for supplemental appropriations to the budget and transfers from contingency throughout the year, and then transfer between funds during the last 3 months of the year. And any transfer or supplemental appropriation of over $10,000 also requires the approval of the RTM. We do have two functions that require fourth quarter transfers this year. One is in the planning and development related to the retirement of a long-term employee. And there was also a parcel that they were required to have an appraisal done for a grant purposes. And we also have insurance and claims. General liability and public liability both came in higher than expected this year for the premiums, and unemployment claims have also increased. The total of these is $31,904. After these transfers are approved, it'll leave a balance in contingency of $239,481.
Thank you, Director Landry. Do any counselors have questions on the fourth quarter transfers? Councilor Aubrey, I'm not sure if you're raising your hand. No? Okay. All right. Seeing no questions, we will vote on 2020-239 fourth quarter transfers. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Is there an abstention? No. So moved unanimously. 9 in favor, 0 opposed, 0 abstentions. We are on to Councilor Aubrey for 2020-215 Fair Housing Action Plan. This is on page 65, I believe.
You are muted.
I'll let you handle it.
I have Paige Broncos here to answer questions on this item.
Let me unmute you, Councilor Aubrey.
Oh, I thought sorry.
Mr. Burt, you try it. Oh,
Did you get her?
there.
Oh, she was there for a second.
Yeah. We'll let you, there you go. All right, Councilor Aubrey, could you read the resolution or the motion? Could you make the motion, please?
I make a motion to recommend a resolution to affirm the town policy of promoting and assuring equal housing opportunities based on the Civil Rights Act of 1968, known as the Fair Housing Act. I so move.
Second.
Moved by Aubrey and seconded by Melendez. Mr. Burt, who did you say was here to speak to this?
Paige Broncos, an attendee.
Mr. Bronk, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Just a simple comment. This is a requirement as a part of our community development block grant program that we approve this fair housing plan every 3 years. So this is pretty standard language. Nothing terribly new.
Thank you, Mr. Bronk. Do any of the counselors have questions? Councilor Heed has his hand up.
Yeah, I wanted to know, thank you, Councilor, Madam Mayor. I wanted to know, what are the changes? Were there any changes, or is it just an update?
Basically, one of the changes we made was to not only designate the staff person, but also indicate that the town manager can appoint an alternate. Also, there's new language regarding reissuing the policy. That's new language that was added by HUD, but there really are no substantial changes from where it was 3 years ago.
If I might.
Yes, Councilor Aubrey.
I just wanted to mention here the local board of realtors asks for what each town is doing for fair housing. So I'll try to bring it to your attention, Paige, and we could be sure to get this in as something that we do regularly.
Thank you.
Are there other counselors with questions? I thought I saw a hand, but I'm not seeing it now. Okay. All right, seeing no further discussion, all those in favor of 2020-215 Fair Housing Action Plan for 2020 to 2023, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? So moved unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Bronk. I don't believe we have any agenda items to review. Other business. Councilor Heed.
Yes, just a question for John Burt. You had emailed like a video tour of the middle school. And I just wanted to let the other counselors know that it's in your mailbox, and also ask, is this something that can be shared online or is it just for the council?
I believe the intent is to put it on the website, but I'll double check that.
All right, thank you.
Councilor Baumgartner had his hand up.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. There's one thing I failed to mention in my communication reports regarding Earth Day and goals, that the council can support, that would enhance our environmental stewardship, if you like to call it that. I was reading recently that the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection reported that emissions are down nearly 40% since last month in response to the social distancing measures and stay-at-home orders. And I really think it's a reminder that we really have to reduce our individual carbon footprints by changing our travel habits and consumer behaviors. When we've called on businesses to implement the plastics reduction ordinance, that was work our council did, and we set a really measurable goal for them to follow. And I think they've, no pun intended, they're heeding that advice, and very much looking forward to implementing that that policy beginning on July 1st. And so one thing I'd like to implore the council to think about is especially given that it's the 50th year anniversary, I'd like to work with some like-minded councilors on more resolutions or ordinances that can enhance our environmental qualities. So just wanted to kind of throw that idea out there for any councilors who would maybe want to kind of get together, maybe in a Zoom and chat about ways we can improve our environment here in Groton and how we can effectuate that lawmaking on the council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Baumgartner. If you'd like to make a referral, please send an email and I'll shoot it out to the full body for confirmation that the rest of the council is indeed interested. Councilor Bordelon and then Councilor Aubry.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I had a question. I was wondering, and I had some questions of different people who had asked, is there a way, any meetings that are typically public meetings, even though they might have low attendance rate, is there going to be like maybe a dashboard or something online or a spot? I know before they used to send out like the weekly meetings and times and dates. Is there a way to have like the access to the meeting if you just want to not necessarily participate, but you want to just tune in to listen? If it's not necessarily going to be aired, but it's a public meeting. I'm not sure if this is a question for maybe John.
Yes, we actually do put it under our calendar, the links to get into those meetings that aren't broadcast like this.
Okay, and you have to click into each individual one, or is there just one page with all the links and the dates and the times?
Well, because your every day new ones are going in there. It's just under each individual one.
Okay,
and
perfect.
Lisa's been swamped with these meetings.
Okay, perfect. Just someone was asking, and I haven't paid attention to how they were posted exactly. So thank you.
And if I can, about Councilor Heed's question, the Public Works Department does intend to post that video on our website. I don't see it there yet, but it should be there soon.
Thank you. And Administrative Assistant Hilton, I apologize if the title is incorrect. She is still publishing the meeting list. And on the town website, there's one page that has all the links to the meetings. Councilor Aubry.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask the town manager if we were in a position that we could buy the oil now for all our buildings and the school buildings.
Well, we're a part of a program where we pre-buy all that. We already have a rate locked in for the year.
Do you think you might want to renegotiate that? I mean,
I don't think we can renegotiate it. I don't know if we could look at buying extra, but at a better rate. But I'll ask purchasing about it.
Yeah, I think it would be very important because I mean, it's unbelievable prices right now.
Thank you. Okay, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Parker motion.
Moved by Parker,
Seconded, Baumgartner.
seconded by Baumgartner. All those in favor of adjournment, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? So moved unanimously. We are adjourned at 8:48. Thank you for all the attendees who came out to help us in our decision-making. Thank you, Mr. Burt and staff, for your fine work. And everybody be safe and stay home.